Okay, so we're diving into the world of environmental policy today.
All right. Oh, good.
We're checking out RoleCatcher.com's resources on becoming an environmental policy officer,
Hmm.
which honestly sounds a little stiff, right? Like, I'm picturing someone in a suit and tie, stuck in meetings all day.
It does kind of conjure up those images, doesn't it? Like stacks of paperwork, fluorescent lights, the whole nine yards.
Exactly. But these RoleCatcher guides paint a surprisingly different picture.
Oh, well.
They mention stuff like safeguarding cultural heritage. I mean, how often do you see that on a typical environmental job description?
That's what I've always found so interesting about this field. It's not just about the science. It's about people. It's about culture.
Yeah,
It's about finding solutions that work for everyone.
you're totally right.
And that's where those less obvious skills come in,
Like what?
like communication, critical thinking, even persuasion. Because you're not just crunching data,
Hmm.
you're trying to get people on board with your recommendations.
Makes sense. And speaking of data, these guides mention an environmental policy officer can go through hundreds of pages of regulations for a single project. No wonder reading comprehension is listed as a key skill.
Oh, absolutely. And we're not talking about skimming here either. This is dense, technical stuff.
You've got to be able to absorb and understand complex info fast.
And it's not just about understanding it, but being able to explain it to others in a way that makes sense. Because let's face it, not everyone speaks fluent environmental policy.
Right, so you've got the science side, the policy side, and then this whole other layer of communication and advocacy.
Exactly. And the guides stress this isn't a field where you learn something once and you're good to go. It's constantly evolving.
So how do you even begin to prepare for a career where the ground is always shifting?
Well, a strong academic foundation is key, for sure.
We're talking like what environmental science degrees?
That's one route. You can do a bachelor's in environmental science, environmental studies. You'll get a solid grounding in the core principles.
Okay, so understanding the science behind the policy is crucial.
It's the foundation. But you also have folks coming in with backgrounds in law, economics, even political science.
Interesting.
Because remember, an environmental policy officer might be tasked with assessing the impact of a new regulation, not just on the ecosystem, but on local businesses, communities, even future generations.
It's like this whole web of interconnected issues.
Exactly.
The guides also mention the importance of real-world experience. Is that really make or break in this field?
It's huge. Think about it. You can read about environmental impact assessments in a textbook,
Right.
but actually being out there in the field, grappling with the complexities of a real-world project,
Yeah.
that's invaluable.
So internships, volunteer work, research projects, that's the kind of stuff that makes a resume stand out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it shows you've not only learned the theory, you've put it into practice.
It's one thing to say you're passionate about the environment,
Right.
but it's another thing entirely to show how you've channeled that passion into tangible action.
Exactly. And that's something we see time and time again with the candidates on RoleCatcher who really shine. They're not just listing skills, they're demonstrating how they've used those skills to make a difference.
So it's about telling your story.
Yes. And not being afraid to own your accomplishments.
I love that. Okay, so let's say you've landed an interview for your dream environmental policy job. What kind of questions should you be prepared for?
Well, they'll definitely want to dig into your experience, of course, internships, volunteer work, any projects you've worked on. But they're also looking for those core competencies like problem solving,
Right.
critical thinking, being able to communicate technical information clearly to a non-technical audience. Those are all essential in this line of work.
And probably being able to handle a little bit of stress. Because let's face it, dealing with environmental issues can be intense.
You're not wrong. It's not a field for the faint of heart. You're constantly dealing with complex challenges, bureaucratic roadblocks. Sometimes it feels like you're wading through molasses to get things done.
But the rewards, when they come, must feel incredible.
They really do. Knowing you're making a tangible difference, that your work is contributing to a healthier planet. There's no feeling like it.
That's what it's all about, right? But even once you're an environmental policy officer, the learning never stops, does it?
Never. The field is constantly evolving. New research, new technologies, new challenges. You got to be a lifelong learner to stay ahead of the curve.
So how does one go about that continuous learning journey? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, the guides highlight professional development as an absolute must. That could mean going for a master's degree, maybe an MPA with a focus on environmental policy, or a master's in environmental science if you want to strengthen that side of things.
Makes sense. What about those professional certifications? What are some of the big ones in this field?
One you'll hear about a lot is the Environmental Impact Assessment Certification, EIA for short. Basically, it proves you can assess the potential environmental impacts of projects, which is obviously huge in this line of work.
EIA. Got it. Any other acronyms I should add to my environmental policy dictionary?
You'll definitely come across EMS, that's Environmental Management Systems. Basically, it's all about organizations minimizing their environmental footprint.
Okay.
And you need folks who understand the ins and outs of EMS to make sure those standards are being met.
So EIA, EMS. It's like learning a whole new language. But let's bring it back down to earth for a second. What does the day-to-day of an environmental policy officer actually look like?
Well, a good chunk of it is research.
Okay.
Imagine yourself hunkering down with stacks of environmental data, policy documents, scientific reports. Your job is to synthesize all that information, find the key takeaways, and turn them into actionable insights.
So strong analytical skills are a must-have, and probably a good amount of patience.
Definitely. But it's not all desk work. Let's say a new development project is proposed.
Okay.
You might be tasked with analyzing its potential impact on the surrounding ecosystems, air quality, water resources, the whole shebang.
So you're not just passively crunching numbers. You're actively shaping the direction of these projects.
Exactly.
And then you need to communicate those findings to stakeholders who may not be scientists themselves, right?
Exactly. You might be presenting to government officials one day, community groups the next. Being able to tailor your message to different audiences is crucial.
It's like you're bridging the gap between the science and the policy, and then finding a way to make that information resonate with different groups of people.
And that often involves navigating competing interests, finding compromises, and coming up with solutions that balance environmental protection with other important factors.
Like economic development and social equity. It's a complex equation.
It really is, and that's what makes this work so challenging and so rewarding.
Speaking of challenging, let's talk job market. The guides mention it's a competitive field. How competitive are we talking?
It's definitely a sought-after field, especially now with climate change and sustainability at the forefront of everyone's minds. So while there's growing demand for environmental policy professionals, there's also a lot of competition for those positions.
So what's the secret sauce? What makes someone stand out from the sea of applicants?
A big one is showcasing your passion. Highlight those experiences, internships, volunteer work, personal projects, anything that demonstrates your genuine commitment to environmental issues.
So it's not enough to simply say you're passionate, you have to show it.
Exactly. And quantify your impact whenever possible. Did you help reduce waste in your campus cafeteria? Did you organize a community cleanup that resulted in X pounds of trash being removed from a local park? Those are the kinds of details that grab an employer's attention.
It's about telling your story in a way that's both compelling and concrete.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, employers want to see that you're not just qualified on paper, but that you're truly passionate about making a difference and that you have the skills and experience to back it up. Yeah. And it's interesting, a lot of people think you have to be a card-carrying scientist to work in environmental policy.
Right, like you need a microscope in one hand and a test tube in the other.
Exactly. But the reality is, it's way more diverse than that. Yes, you need folks who really understand the science,
Of course.
but you also need people who get the legal side, the economic impacts, even the social dynamics.
Like a puzzle.
It really is. All those pieces have to fit together to create effective environmental policy.
So for someone listening who's thinking, okay, I get it, diverse skills, but where do I even start? What are some concrete degree programs they could look into?
Well, if you're someone who loves digging into the nitty-gritty of ecosystems, a bachelor's in environmental science or environmental studies is a great foundation. You'll cover everything from ecology and biology to geology and atmospheric science, the whole shebang.
So understanding the science behind the policy is key.
It's essential. But then you have folks who are drawn to the policy side, the actual creation and implementation of those regulations. For them, a degree in environmental policy or environmental management might be a better fit.
What do those programs focus on?
They dive into the legal frameworks, the political processes, the economic considerations, things like environmental law, policy analysis, stakeholder engagement. It's about understanding the whole ecosystem in which those policies exist.
It's like being fluent in the language of environmental action.
Exactly. And for someone who sees these issues through a more global lens, there are programs in international environmental policy or global environmental governance.
Okay, so we're talking about tackling those big, hairy environmental problems that cross borders, climate change, ocean pollution, deforestation. What do those programs entail?
You delve into international environmental agreements,
Hmm.
the role of organizations like the UN, the challenges of finding solutions that work on a global scale. It's fascinating stuff.
Sounds like it. But there's one skill set we haven't touched on much that I think applies across all these areas, no matter what your specific focus is.
I guess communication.
Bingo. You could have the most brilliant environmental policy solution in the world, but if you can't communicate it effectively to policymakers, to communities, to the public, it's dead in the water.
Preach. Being able to write clearly and persuasively, give engaging presentations, tailor your message to different audiences. Those are non-negotiable skills.
So don't underestimate the power of a well-crafted policy brief or a compelling presentation.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the power of storytelling. Think about the environmental campaigns that have really stuck with you. Chances are they had a strong narrative, something that connected with you on an emotional level.
That's so true. People might forget statistics, but they'll remember a story.
Exactly. So if you're passionate about environmental policy and you've got a knack for storytelling, use it. Whether it's through writing, filmmaking, public speaking, your voice can be a powerful tool for change.
Love that. Okay, so we've covered education, communication, but let's be real, education alone won't get you that dream job. We got to talk about experience.
Couldn't agree more. Employers want to see that you've actually applied your knowledge in the real world.
So how do you even begin to gain that valuable experience, especially in a field as competitive as this one?
Internships are huge. They give you that hands-on experience, help you build your professional network, give you a taste of what it's really like to work in this field.
And internships aren't just limited to government agencies, right?
Not at all. Think nonprofits, private companies with sustainability teams, research institutions. There's a ton of variety out there.
So no matter your specific interest within environmental policy, there's probably an internship out there for you.
Most likely. And for those who can't swing a full-time internship, volunteering is another fantastic option.
What's great about volunteering?
It allows you to contribute your time and skills to causes you care about, gain practical experience, and meet like-minded people, all while signaling to potential employers that you're serious about this field.
Because you're willing to put in the work even when you're not getting paid.
Exactly. Plus, you never know, volunteer gigs can sometimes turn into paid positions down the road.
It's all about building those relationships and making a good impression.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, for those who thrive in a research setting, there are also opportunities to gain experience through research projects.
Oh, like working in a lab or something?
Could be. Many universities and research institutions have projects where students can assist with data collection, analysis, even contributing to publications.
That's a fantastic way to build your skills, contribute to real-world science, and get your name out there in the research community.
It really is. And speaking of getting your name out there, let's not forget about the power of networking.
Right. Networking, it's not just about awkwardly exchanging business cards at events, is it?
Definitely not. It's about building genuine relationships with people in your field, attending conferences, going to workshops, even just connecting with people on LinkedIn.
So how do you network effectively? What's the secret?
Approach it with curiosity and a genuine desire to learn from others. Ask thoughtful questions, share your own experiences, and don't be afraid to reach out to people you admire for informational interviews.
Because those connections can be so valuable, not just for finding jobs, but for getting advice, mentorship. It's about building a community.
Exactly.
Right.
And that community can be a huge source of support throughout your career, not just when you're starting out.
So internships, volunteering, research, networking. It sounds like building a career in environmental policy is all about being proactive.
It really is. You've got to take initiative, create your own opportunities, and constantly be on the lookout for ways to learn and grow.
Because no one's going to hand you your dream job on a silver platter.
That's for sure. You've got to go out there and make it happen.
And it's an ongoing process, right? It's not like you reach a certain point and you can just coast.
Nope. The learning never stops in this field. You got to be constantly upgrading your skills, expanding your knowledge base, and staying ahead of the curve.
So how do you do that? What are some ways that environmental policy professionals can keep their skills sharp and their knowledge up to date?
Well, conferences and workshops are always a good bet. They're a fantastic way to learn about the latest research, technologies, and policy developments, all while connecting with other professionals in your field.
It's like a shot of inspiration and a crash course in all things environmental policy all rolled into one.
Exactly. But I know attending conferences can be pricey, especially for those who are just starting out. The good news is there are more affordable ways to stay current as well.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, lots of organizations offer webinars and online courses these days, many of which are free or very low cost.
Oh, nice.
And don't underestimate the value of simply setting aside dedicated time each week to read industry publications, follow thought leaders on social media, listen to relevant podcasts. There's a wealth of information out there if you know where to look.
It's like having a personalized professional development curriculum right at your fingertips.
Exactly. And the best part is, it's completely free. All it takes is a little bit of time and effort.
Love that. But sometimes you want that structured learning environment and formal recognition for your knowledge, which is where those professional certifications come in, right?
You got it. Earning a professional certification is a fantastic way to demonstrate your expertise in a particular area of environmental policy, and it shows potential employers that you're serious about your professional development.
It's like leveling up your skills and showing the world that you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
Exactly. So, what are some of the top certifications in the environmental policy world? Well, one of the most widely recognized is the Environmental Impact Assessment, EIA certification. This globally recognized credential proves you can assess the environmental impacts of projects and come up with effective ways to minimize those impacts.
Sounds like a must-have for anyone who wants to work on things like infrastructure development or renewable energy projects.
Absolutely. As sustainability becomes increasingly important, companies and governments are going to need people who can conduct these assessments thoroughly and accurately. Having that EIA certification gives you a real edge.
Makes sense. What are some other certifications that our listeners might want to check out?
Another great one is the Certified Environmental Professional CEP certification. This one's a bit broader. It covers a wide range of environmental topics and shows that you're committed to ethical and professional standards in your work.
So it's less about specializing in a particular niche and more about having a well-rounded understanding of environmental principles and best practices.
Exactly. The CEP certification is a good option if you want to keep your career options open and work in different areas of environmental policy.
Now, for those who are super passionate about sustainability, which seems to be everyone these days, are there certifications specifically for that?
Absolutely. One of the big ones is the LAE Accredited Professional, LAEAP credential.
Ah, LAD. I've seen that on buildings before, but I'm not entirely sure what it means.
A LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It's basically the gold standard for green building practices.
So it's all about designing and constructing buildings that are environmentally friendly and energy efficient.
Exactly. And as more and more companies and organizations prioritize sustainability, the demand for LEED certified buildings and the professionals who can design and build them is skyrocketing.
That makes sense. What about climate change? Are there certifications specifically for those who want to dedicate their careers to tackling that?
Definitely. The Certified Climate Change Professional CCCP credential is designed specifically for folks working on climate change mitigation and adaptation.
So we're talking about things like reducing greenhouse gas emissions, preparing for the impacts of climate change, that kind of thing.
Exactly. The CCCP certification covers a broad range of topics, from climate science and policy to carbon accounting and emissions reduction strategies.
Sounds like a great option for anyone who's serious about tackling this global crisis head on.
It is. And the great thing about all these certifications, EIA, CEP, LEED AP, CCCP, is that they not only boost your career prospects, they also provide valuable opportunities for learning and growth.
It's a win-win. You're gaining valuable knowledge and skills while also signaling to potential employers that you're serious about this field and committed to staying ahead of the curve.
Precisely. It's about investing in yourself and your career while also contributing to something bigger than yourself.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about how to prepare for a career in environmental policy, the education, the experience, the certifications. But what about the job market itself? What's the outlook for aspiring environmental policy professionals? Give it to us straight. Are there jobs out there?
The good news is the job market for environmental policy professionals is actually looking pretty good. It's been growing steadily for a while now, and all signs point to that trend continuing in the coming years.
That's music to our ears. What's fueling this growth? Why the sudden surge in demand for environmental policy expertise?
Well, there are a few factors at play. First, climate change is no longer a fringe issue. It's a reality that's impacting every corner of the planet and every sector of the economy.
It's front-page news practically every day now.
Right. And with those impacts becoming more and more impossible to ignore, The demand for skilled professionals who can develop and implement effective climate policies is skyrocketing.
So we're talking about everything from drafting those big picture climate action plans at the national level down to implementing local initiatives to reduce emissions and build resilience to climate impacts.
Exactly. But it's not just about climate change. There's also a growing global focus on sustainability more broadly.
Sustainability, everyone's talking about it these days. But what does it actually mean in the context of environmental policy?
It's about finding ways to meet our needs today without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. It's about balancing economic growth with environmental protection and social equity.
It's about creating a world where people and planet can thrive, both now and in the future.
Exactly. And environmental policy professionals are on the front lines of that effort. They're the ones developing the policies, implementing the programs, and finding innovative solutions to our most pressing environmental challenges.
So for those who are passionate about creating a more sustainable future, it sounds like a pretty exciting time to be entering this field.
It really is. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that it's also a competitive field. There are lots of talented and passionate people vying for these positions.
So how do you stand out from the crowd? What advice would you give to aspiring environmental policy professionals who are just starting out?
First and foremost, showcase your passion. Don't be shy about highlighting those experiences, whether they're internships, volunteer gigs, or personal projects that demonstrate your genuine commitment to environmental issues.
So it's not just about listing your skills and qualifications on a resume. It's about telling your story and showing potential employers why you're uniquely suited for this line of work.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to toot your own horn a little. Did you help your school reduce its carbon footprint? Did you organize a successful fundraising campaign for a local conservation organization? Those are the kinds of accomplishments that make you memorable.
It's about showing, not just telling.
Exactly. And networking is huge, too. Go to conferences, join professional organizations, connect with people on LinkedIn. You never know where those connections might lead.
Because sometimes it's not just about what you know, it's about who you know.
Sadly, that's true. But more importantly, building relationships with people in your field can provide you with invaluable mentorship, support, and even job leads down the road.
It's about building a community of like-minded people who share your passion for protecting the planet.
Exactly. And finally, don't ever stop learning. The field of environmental policy is constantly evolving, so it's crucial to stay curious, seek out new knowledge, and embrace opportunities for professional development.
Whether that's pursuing an advanced degree, earning a professional certification, or simply staying up to date on the latest research and policy developments by reading industry publications and attending webinars.
Precisely. The more you invest in your own professional growth, the more marketable you'll be to potential employers.
And the more equipped you'll be to tackle the complex environmental challenges facing our planet.
Exactly.
It's like we've got all these incredible tools at our disposal, but we need people who know how to use them effectively, ethically, and for the greater good.
Exactly. And that's where environmental policy professionals come in. They're the ones who can bridge that gap between the technology and the real-world impact.
It's about ensuring that these advancements are used to create a more sustainable and just future for everyone, not just a select few.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because technology alone can't solve all our problems. We need to be mindful of the potential unintended consequences, the ethical considerations, and that's where having a strong policy framework is essential.
So before we wrap things up, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in this field? Knowing what you know now, what are some of the key things to keep in mind?
You know, it might sound cliché, but never underestimate the power of passion. This field can be tough. You'll encounter setbacks, you'll hit roadblocks, you'll have days where you wonder if you're actually making a difference.
Because it's not always glamorous, right?
Not always. But it's that fire in your belly, that unwavering belief that a better world is possible that will carry you through those tough times.
Because at the end of the day, it's about more than just a job, right? It's about being part of something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. It's about knowing that the work you do matters, that you're contributing to something meaningful, even if you don't always see the immediate results.
And you don't have to do it alone either.
Never. Find mentors who inspire you, connect with peers who challenge you, build a network of people who share your passion.
Because we're all in this together, right?
We are. And the more we can support each other, share knowledge, and collaborate on solutions, the better equipped we'll be to tackle the environmental challenges ahead.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of environmental policy. It's a field that's both incredibly challenging and incredibly rewarding.
That's a great way to put it.
For our listeners who are interested in exploring this career path, remember that RoleCatcher is a fantastic resource. They've got tons of information on everything from crafting the perfect resume to finding your dream job in the environmental field.
And they have those awesome AI tools that can help match you with the right opportunities.
Exactly. So if you're ready to turn your passion for the planet into a fulfilling career, be sure to check them out. To all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the world of environmental policy. We hope you found it informative, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit challenging.
We hope it sparked some ideas and got you thinking about how you can make a difference.
Because we need all hands on deck to create a more sustainable and equitable future for all. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep fighting the good fight.